Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Yes, that's been fixed. We apologize for the delay yesterday. Problem on their end. Also, we are on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. You may be watching us on a stream because sometimes we go stream to pod, and that's what we're doing tonight. Make sure you like and subscribe. Lots of Dolphins content up there over the past week. So make sure if you're a Dolphins fan, you want to be subscribed there. Also, check out 5reasonsports.com. Spell that one out for the latest takeaways from Brady Hawk, the latest columns from Mateo Mayorga, and much more without a paywall. We do not charge you like the newspapers do. And check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. That includes our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. That's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. You can see it right there. There's the phone number, 561-891-9620. That's 561-891-9620. Reach out to Nelson and his team. What do? They provide, they rent out the C-Arm equipment on a short and long-term basis to hospitals, surgery centers, chiropractic offices, and pain management offices. They also offer the cadaver lab courses. Reach out to Nelson, huge Miami Heat fan. Trust me on this one. He's also just a really good dude. They do a really good job. If you work for a hospital or anywhere in the medical space, doctor's office, reach out to Nelson and get the equipment that you need. 561-891-9620 or go to the website. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. I'm going to give you the website here one more time, c-armandstaffing.com. Fill out the form. They'll get right back to you. And now, today's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yay. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing. Got it all band. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at 5 Reasons Sports. We got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. Make sure you check out the episode that I did with Sean Rochester after a big win over the Memphis Grizzlies. No John Morant, obviously no Brandon Clark. A little bit shorthanded, but he did what we never thought they could do. They scored 138 points. They won pretty much easily going away. Didn't have to bring Jimmy Butler back. We know the episode didn't post right away because of some trouble on Apple Podcasts. So make sure that you catch it because Sean and I went through a whole bunch of things that we liked in that game, even though obviously it needs to be sustained. But the biggest thing that needs to be sustained is, Alex, the Heat shot the ball really well. And that was an outlier from this entire season. Okay, you had... First thing, Tyler Herro shot 7 of 8 inside the arc. Jimmy Butler got to the line consistently. Bam, I think, made 10 out of 15 shots. 15 is the number. That's that magic number that he was hitting before the All-Star break that he stopped hitting in terms of field goal attempts. But they also got really good shooting from Kyle Lowry and Gabe Vincent, which is something that's almost never happened in the same game this year. Max Strus made a couple of shots. They shot the ball really well, particularly inside the arc, although outside the arc, even not on high volume, they shot the ball well there too. But it is an extension of a trend. Like, it's not like it's an outlier in the sense that they're not shooting better lately. They are. It's just that they shot really, really well in this game. And we've talked about shooting being the single biggest problem with this team this year. What are the numbers? And then we'll get to why they're shooting better.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You know, it's funny because we all kind of tongue-in-cheek headed into the month of March saying, well, you know, March is starting. Things are going to start to resolve themselves. And I really did not think it was going to happen. I've said this whole season, I don't think they're going to have a stretch. And I'm pretty sure I specifically said, I don't think the shooting is just going to magically come up in March. Well, that's exactly what's happened, right? And now, you know, it's not so much magical. I just think they've kind of been due, right? So even if they're not a good or great shooting team, you know, I think the natural progression to the mean has been happening. So the question is whether they sustain it or not. But the actual stats are, you know, in the month of March, they have the 7th highest offensive rating. It's very close. So, you know, you could say probably top 10 is more accurate. And then 11th highest offensive rating in the half court. So that's one thing right after kind of being in the bottom 7 all season in those aspects. Then when you talk about their actual shooting, they're shooting almost 40% from 3. It's about 39.6%, which is 6th in the month of March. Obviously an elite number. Under 34% for the rest of the season. So that's already a huge uptick by itself. Then, to top it off, they're a team that's been very, very good in the mid-range, whether you talk about volume, whether you talk about accuracy, that's gone up by about 3%. They're shooting just under 48% in the mid-range. And just to be clear, that counts anything that's not at the rim and not a three. So that includes any floaters, anything in the short mid-range, which is particularly where the Heat thrive. And then at the rim, another place where they haven't been good, they're not necessarily taking more shots at the rim. They're just kind of finishing at a higher clip. They're shooting about 3.5-4% better than what they have all season. And it's about middle of the pack in the month of March, which is also in itself a bit of an uptick because they've been in the bottom 10 there. So they're kind of shooting just about better from just about everywhere. And I think nothing has changed much with their shot profile. I just think they know what type of shots they want to get. I think they've gotten better at picking and choosing. And look, I think they've gotten better at just kind of moving the ball. And like I said, the progression to the mean is happening. Now, I just don't know how long this sticks, but I also have the player shooting splits here, so we can go by those. And, I'm going to start with Kyle here because Duncan has the highest, but he's barely played, so I'm not even going to count him. Kyle is shooting 54% from three in the month of March. Caleb is shooting 50% in the month of March from three. Jimmy shooting 43%. Tyler shooting 40%. Depot actually shooting 40%, surprisingly enough. Max Strus shooting 36.6% from three this month, and Gabe 33%, Kevin Love 28%, which actually feels like they would be higher. But yeah, that about sums up where everything is coming from.
Well, that's not bad. I mean, look, Strus being at 36%, it doesn't sound like much, but he's been at 33% for the season. Gabe also is up a little bit, even though 33% doesn't sound great. What gets me about all of this is that they're doing this even though it's not like they've really inserted more shooters into the rotation or the lineup. Like, yeah, Kevin Love was supposed to be that guy in the starting lineup that was added, and he's shooting 28% from three. So it's not like they've added Duncan Robinson to the lineup regularly because, he's had a couple of games he's played, a couple of games he's been out for various reasons, and other games he's just out of the rotation entirely. So it's not really a personnel change. It's not. It's just shots starting to go down. I think what you're talking about, though, with they like the shots they're getting now. I thought they liked the shots they were getting most of the season. Like we've talked about, the number of open shots that they've got and how many they've missed in comparison to other teams. And that's been the single biggest problem this year. I mean, we can talk about size and rebounding and the fact that they don't know what to do in transition and all of that. The single biggest problem is they've gotten a ton of open shots they don't make. And that becomes demoralizing. That leads to breaks the other way. That leads to lack of trust. Then the process starts to go away offensively. So I don't know if this is sustainable. I just think it's odd that they're all shooting better at once, right? Like that's, they say shooting is contagious, but it doesn't feel like there's a much better feeling around the team. It doesn't, like you said, they won 5 out of 7. It doesn't feel like that. Like when I heard that today, I was like, they won 5 out of 7? Right? Because they had the one blowout in there where they didn't play particularly well. But I guess let's go through it specifically, okay? You talk about some of the players. Kyle looks healthier. And it has felt like some of these shots that he's taking were the kinds of shots he didn't want to take during the stretch. He wasn't playing particularly well, and we talked about how the offense would collapse because the ball would come out to Kyle and he wouldn't want to do anything with it. He's taking those shots now, so that's good. Jimmy taking a bunch of threes is not the thing, but him getting to the line consistently then sets up things for other people. Bam seems to be getting back to his spots a little bit more. That's good. The single biggest thing that I liked in the game yesterday, and Sean and I talked about that, other than the Butler's early free throws, was Tyler doing work inside the three. And that, to me, I know Spoelstra wants him to shoot more threes. You and I were both there the other night where he said, he shot 10. I wish he would shoot more. I want him to get to his mid-range spots more often, like to find a way to work through the defense to do it. He did it last night.
I think I agree with you, but it's also such a weird place that they put him in this season. And I know I've mentioned this before. I just think ideally his role is playing off the ball, providing the shooting leverage and gravity for the best players on the team. And I think he does that to a certain degree. With the starters, it's not like he's always on ball. He's the one running the offense the entire time or anything like that. But yeah, you think of him as a 3-level scorer, but we know in reality he takes now, this season, the bulk of his shots from three. He doesn't take quite as many in the mid range as he did last season, but still a good amount, and he's still good from there. And then the actual problem is that they need him to be one of the guys to create rim pressure. And that's not necessarily his strength, but because of the way the roster is constructed, you don't have guys who can get into the paint consistently, right? Especially if you're not going to be playing Victor Oladipo like they didn't play last night. That just takes away another option. Not that he's been getting to the rim seamlessly or anything like that, but I just think they need Tyler to be at least touching paint more often. It's not that they need him taking a bunch of layups. Like, it's not going to be there a lot of times, but other than when he's getting run off the line, I just think they kind of need him to be that 3-level scorer and to figure out that balance between being the off-ball player and being the on-ball dynamic 3-level scorer. I think there's a little bit of a burden there where he kind of has to play both roles. And, that's kind of the burden of, well, you got paid and all these other guys weren't making their shots all season. So now you got to help, you got to help make up for that as the starter and as the third best player on the team. So I agree with you. I think if there's easier ones to be had in the mid-range, take them. I think they kind of need a little bit of everything from him right now because it's kind of where the team has been on offense. And, even though we're sitting here talking about how the threes have been falling and they're just offensively a lot crisper when it comes to their actual shot making, no matter what part of the court they're on. The other things, and I know I've said this on Winnow 2 on our Off the Floor feed, which everybody should subscribe to, $305 a month, of course, winnow.app/5 on the floor. Anyways, what I was saying was, super smooth plug, right? No,
I'm always good with the plugs. That's fine.
Yeah, but I do think they've got to sharpen up on all the other things that they've actually been pretty good at all season, right? I think the defensive rebounding in the month of March is 25th, which is really bad considering they've been top 5 all year in defensive rebound percentage.
I want to stop
that's
you
got to
there.
go up.
I want to stop you there because I'm going to cycle back to Tyler after we go, but I just want to mention one thing because you mentioned the defensive rebounding has gone down. It's gone down since Kevin Love showed up. And I'm not blaming this on Kevin Love, but I'm sort of throwing this at fans because fans always have this attitude that just get the bigger guy to play next to Bam and the rebounding will be better. And the reality, Alex, is, and I don't want to dwell on this a lot, but it's something I've been wanting to say. The reality is the rebounding was better with Caleb Martin starting at the 4. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's factually true. Now, I don't think that necessarily has to hold up. I think a lot of it had to do with the lackluster effort that the Heat were giving for points there, especially post All-Star break. There was just a lot of really weird quarters, teams scoring all over them. So I think it's corrected itself a little bit. Maybe if I, whittle it down to the past week or so, those numbers are up a bit. But regardless, they've got to get back to their ways with the defensive boards. They've got to get back to their ways taking care of the ball because that's really fallen off a cliff as well. Noted that their turnover percentage went from top 10 all season to 26 in turnover percentage in the month of March. And then,
but they might have a fix for that too.
Yeah, and on top of that, their defense has not been sharp. So it's just like the shots are falling, but everything else is good now. They haven't found that balance yet.
Okay, but let me stop you again there before I cycle back to Tyler. The turnover percentage is something that could be corrected by Kyle Lowry playing the minutes he's playing now and Victor Oladipo not playing those minutes. Because the biggest contributor to the turnover percentage increase has been, Victor pounding the ball into the ground and then making these passes at people's feet. Like that has been, the number one addition has been in Kyle out. And so for those of us who've been critical of Kyle, the one thing I did say was one thing he could help with is to settle them down and bring the turnovers down. So they may have a fix there. Playing Love less, I'm not saying that's the direct correlation, but that could lead to better rebounding, honestly, because I don't feel, even though I was sold on him still being a really good rebounder when he came from Cleveland, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked yet. Again, some of that was Bam not being as engaged. So you're right. And there were other things that were going on. And defensively, some of that is the fact that they're playing worse defenders at times than they were before. Love being among them. But we saw Haywood Highsmith get back up 5 minutes yesterday in place of Yurt. And that's a potential fix to some of the defensive problems for short stretches. I thought Highsmith was great yesterday. So I feel like they have some fixes to that in the rotation and on the roster. The shooting is the thing that needs to come up. I want to touch on it more as we go forward, but I want to get to Herro's numbers because you talked about where he's doing. So I'm going to look to the side here. So if you're on YouTube, I apologize. You have to stare at my nose. But at the rim this year, he's shooting 71%. 3 to 10, that's very good. Actually, that's good. For a guy who doesn't have elite athleticism, 71% at the rim is pretty good. Dragic used to be in the mid to high 70s in his elite stage. You'll take Herro at 71%. 3 to 10 feet, he's shooting 48%. 10 to 16 feet, he's shooting 45%. That's pretty good. I mean, if you know, shooting 10 to 16 feet, 45%. He's at 32% at 16 feet to the three-point line. I never like when anybody takes those shots. Those are the shots everybody wants you to take. And he's at 38% from three. But I'm going to look at last year, by the way. Okay, I'm gonna look just to compare here real quick. Okay, because I want to see that doesn't have the percentage of shots here. You can find all this on Basketball Reference if you're looking for it. But if you take a look at his shooting from last year in terms of just percentages, he's up at the rim. He was at 69% last year. He's up slightly from 3 to 10 feet. He's about the same from 10 to 16 feet. He's down from 16 feet to the three-point line, and he shot the exact same percentage from three, 37.5%. He's shooting the exact same percentage from three, but you're right. The number of three-point shots as a percentage of his profile has gone up. The number of shots from 16 feet to 23 feet has gone down. The percentages have also gone down. So that's kind of the area that you want him to stay out of. But I want him to be in that 3 to 10 feet, 10 to 16 feet area. Like, I feel like that's, again, he can get to his floater. There's a lot of different ways that he can create in there. And I liked what I saw in the last game. I just think there was a good mix. He had some threes, but he got inside also. I want to talk about the Jimmy and Bam shot profiles when we move past the sponsors here. But I got two sponsors to mention. Our friends over at Prize Picks. Use the code 5, FIVE. You can play the NCAA tournament there. Play, obviously, the NBA season and the NBA playoffs. But they got golf. They got tennis. They got esports. They got MMA. They have NHL. They have everything there. They have the World Baseball Classic as long as it goes. Go to Prize Picks. Use the code 5, FIVE. Get that initial deposit matched up to $100. It's free money. They do not have rollovers. It's just rated the #1 fastest growing sports app in the country. You get it from the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, or prizepicks.com. Also, our gambling partner, also legal. These are legal. You're not going to get stuff from offshore from us anymore. Go to betteredge.com. That's betteredge. I said anymore. There's good reason for that. Betteredge.com. There, use the code 5RSN. That's the number 5RSN. We're currently running an NCAA tournament bracket there, but we run tournaments there all the time. This is peer-to-peer legal sports betting. It's legal because you're betting against others there. You're not, it's like betting against your friends. It's a social app. It's not like betting against the book. So it's totally legal. It's legal in 44 states. It's based out of Minneapolis. Go to betteredge.com. Use the code 5. That's number 5RSN. You get $20 free to play. Let's talk Jimmy here a little bit, and then Bam. As you look at Jimmy, what if I was to say to you, for them to get the best possible shots, Alex, okay, not just Jimmy getting the best possible shots, but the team getting the best possible shots, what should be his approach?
Honestly, I don't know what to say.
Well, hold on. First, now I can see you. Go ahead.
Yeah, excuse me. I don't know what to say other than Jimmy Butler doing what he already has been doing. Like, I think he really has, you know, as he's matured as a star, I think he's pushed his game to a degree where, you know, he is the master at what he does, right? People will talk about him like he's not this top level scorer because, you know, the points per game during the season stay low and because he supposedly can't shoot. And yeah, he's not a shooter. That's not what he's doing out there. But what if I told you that he's having his best shooting season as a Heat player this year from all different spots on the court? Like, he's shooting his highest percentage from three by like 10%, right? Not that, you know, he's taking a lot more of those, but that's one thing. He's shooting his highest percentage in the mid-range by a couple percent and is tied for highest percentage at the rim with last season. So he's, you know, you can't say that he's declining. Not only that, it feels like he's gotten better and he's gotten more polished. Like, I think he's getting to the free throw line just as much by the numbers. He still looks just as good defensively. And I really do think he is a better player now after all this time, and, you know, and as a 33-year-old than when he first got here. And I don't know if that's an obvious thing to say or not, because, you know, at that point he hadn't put up the two monster playoff runs that we now have seen. But I just think, like, the way that he handles himself throughout the regular season, we don't see the peak of him all the time. But when he really turns it up, I mean, he is still so good. So I don't know how much of his approach actually needs to change. Like I still think, you can nitpick him as a playmaker. The fact that he doesn't make a lot of the cross court passes to the weak side shooter when that corner is open. That's something I say. None of the Heat's best passers really make that pass, which can bother me.
That was the LeBron thing.
And the best passers in the league can all make that pass. But other than that, like, I do think the way that he's done it is masterful. He knows how to optimize himself in the role that he's in. He knows what he's good at. He doesn't take any bad shots, doesn't make bad decisions. And really, I think it's more about the ball movement that you were talking about before the ad read there. And just to piggyback onto what you were saying there, Tyler last game, post game, spoke about how much the ball was just popping and, was really speaking over and over about how much he loved the ball movement during that game. And I think that speaks to what you were talking about with Depot there. It's not to blame it all on him, right? But you're 100% right that the ball sticks with him. And it's one of the struggles, I think, with him is really trying to figure out how to be a role player without just kind of holding on to the ball all the time. I don't think he's done a great job offensively with trying to, balance it out. I don't think he's a primary shot creator anymore. And, me and Leif did the episode about the rotation the night before, and Max was the one we were talking about whose minutes got cut during the Jazz game. But I said it might not be him. Like, even if they go shorter into a shorter 9-man rotation, it could be somebody else. And Depot ended up being the guy. And I think, we kind of get back to that point where it's like you have different tools, and it's going to be about, which ones do you want to use on a particular night or for a particular matchup. And the Depot thing, we've seen now that when you take him out, maybe you're going to lose some perimeter defense, but the ball might move around a little bit more because you don't have quite as many guys who, the ball just sticks to them. And I really like Victor Oladipo. I still think he can give them something. I don't think he should be out of the rotation permanently or anything like that, but it is fair to say that the ball sticks.
We talk about Vic in this context. He's had two sort of stop and starts this year, right? Well, three actually. There was training camp, and we thought he was going to be ready, and then he wasn't ready. And then there was, he came back again, then again out, then again out. It feels like he came back this time with a desire to do more. It felt like he was trying to fit in a little bit more before, and this time he's trying to do too much, maybe because Kyle was out. But I'm with you on this. I want to get back to the Jimmy numbers here because you mentioned he's been better in every area. He has been. 2-point shooting this year, he's gone from 52% last year to 55%, career high. You mentioned at the rim, 70%, tied with last season. 3 to 10 feet, he's gone from 41% last year to 48% this year. 10 to 16 feet, 46% to 47%. 16 feet to the three-point line, I hate that shot. He's shooting 39% from there. It's pretty good. He was at 33% last season. And you mentioned the three-point shooting is up. But here's the number. Basketball Reference allows you to look at average shot distance. Jimmy Butler's average shot distance this year is the lowest of his career by far. 8.3 feet. If you look early in his career, 10.4, 11.7, 14.6, 11.8, 12.0, 12.9, 12.1, 11.7, 12.3, 11.5, 10.0. That was his first year in Miami, 10.0. 9.3, 9.6, 8.3. 8.3. It tells you where he's operating and where he's comfortable operating this season. Again, this is some of the stuff we do, and this is why I like bringing you on to talk the numbers, because I'm more of an eye test guy most of the time. But there's sometimes where the eye test matches up with the stats. Like, I would have probably guessed that just from watching him, because he feels like he's so poised now and he's waiting for the doubles to come, or he's waiting for the right matchup, and then he's attacking. But to actually see it there, that he's dropped to 8.3 in distance, most players, when they get older, and this was the case with Bron too, they start moving away from the basket, right? They don't want to do their damage down there anymore. Jimmy has moved towards it. That's a good thing. All right, we got time for one more conversation here, and it's about Bam Adebayo. I do want to mention playback. If you haven't been on there with us, you should be. That's where you can see the stream of the game. You can still listen to John and to Crotty and to Reed, but you can also listen to us. We just tell stories. We tell you stuff we don't tell you anywhere else, even the Winnow feed. So go to playback. Check it out. We've been doing every Heat game lately, and we will be calling. I won't be there, but Greg will be there. Jazz Santana will be there. Others. The Miami game the first round game of the tournament on Friday at 7:30. So it starts a little bit before 7:30. It's tip. So check it out. Go to playback.tv/5 on the floor. I want to just go real quick to Bam's shot profile here, as we talk about shot volume with Bam, but shot profile matters also. Okay, so I'm going to look at this year as compared to last year. We've all talked about the shot attempts. I'll just ask you before I get to the numbers here. His shot profile lately, without looking at the numbers, do you like it or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I think we kind of know what Bam's shot profile looks like now after seeing the season and the growth he's taken. Now, obviously, you could ask for more. He had that stretch where we talked about where he just kind of didn't look as engaged as he did throughout the rest of the season. So other than that part, I think he's kind of done what he's needed to. And yeah, I think teams are going to know now, and they do know that shot he has, in the short mid-range is his bread and butter, that he can get to it multiple different ways and can kind of, go over the shoulder, turn around. He is just very comfortable from there. The numbers do reflect that he's taken, more mid-range attempts. That's not, that's the least surprising thing. But, the really good thing about it, and I know you have it there as well, it's just the mid-range numbers, the accuracy. He is shooting almost 6 percentage points higher in the mid-range as a whole this season than last year, despite taking, a good amount more volume-wise. So this is another example of the stats supporting the eye test. You would think maybe the percentages wouldn't be that great because he's taken so many of them. He's taken so many of those damn mid-range shots. And no, it's very, very good. And, when you look at it, it's in the 74th percentile in the entire league. It's probably even higher if I filter that for bigs. But yeah, I just think in general, Bam can still figure it out when it comes to when to attack the rim versus when to take the midi. I still think he's growing, with those types of nuances of growing into a scorer. But we've seen the steps he's taken this year, and the numbers reflect it.
So we talk about the mid-range and how he's 5 percentage points lower. If you break it down a little bit more of the mid-range, it's even better. You talk about his sweet spot, it's 10 to 16 feet. He's shooting 50% from 10 to 16 feet. That is very high. His volume of shots from 10 to 16 feet are up to 27% of his total shots. That's up from 20% last year. So as you said, more with better accuracy. That's not typically the way that it goes. One other number I want to look at, because it just tells you his progression as a player. If you go from his rookie season, where of course he was playing behind Hassan Whiteside, but you go from his rookie season to now, what percentage of his field goal attempts were dunks compared to now? 29% of his field goal attempts as a rookie were dunks. It's gone down every year, and it's now 14%. Now, Heat fans might say you want more dunks, right? But this is the way that the offense has evolved. Because before, Bam was just a finisher. That was pretty much it. I mean, you look at that amount. He was going to get finishing plays, lobs, that kind of stuff. They put the ball in his hands more now to create for himself or get to that spot. But you also look at the percentage of field goal attempts per distance. I do want to see him a little bit more at the rim. Again, you go from his rookie season to now. 62% of his shots as a rookie were at the rim. 57% second year. 48% next year. 35% next year. 40% last year, so when it ticked up 30% this year. Only 30% of his shots are coming at the rim. So he has become more proficient in the mid-range. He's taking more shots in the mid-range. But you also want them to find a way to get him the easiest look possible, which is at the rim, because his rim percentages are still good. He's at 72% this year, down from 77% last year. But he's still, 72% is 72%, okay? You want to maximize that as much as possible.
I mean, imagine they had guards who could find him.
That's the biggest problem. So, again, he has, in a way, had to, because without the dribble handoff stuff and without guards who can find him, he's had to improvise to essentially find the spot on the floor where he's comfortable and he's become proficient. But no matter how proficient he gets from that spot, he's never going to be as proficient as he is inside 3 feet, because nobody is, right? And so that is something that they need to figure out. Now that he's gotten more aggressive and he's taken the bull by the horns, okay, and taking the initiative, now they need to find guards who can actually feed him. Because I feel, and we saw the Herro Bam pick and roll look a little better yesterday. So maybe there's some growth there. Kyle coming back helps. Vic not pounding the ball into the floor all the time probably helps. Jimmy maybe looking for him a little bit more would help. But that is something that they're going to have to figure out as they go forward the rest of the season. To the offseason is, okay, now Bam can do this other stuff. Now can we get him sort of the easy stuff that a lot of bigs get that we're not giving him? Does that make sense?
For sure. I really do think it just comes down to the guard play. I think the season has really been just it's worse when you look at the aspect of feeding Bam. Like I didn't think it was this big of a problem last season. Maybe some of that had to do with Kyle being a little bit more on ball. I think there was a whole lot more Kyle Bam pick and roll last season that we've seen at all. This season it went from like, a decent chunk of it, right? A decent amount of it last season to absolutely nothing, right? So maybe that's just that's one less way that you can get to him, but that doesn't account for all the other guys, right? I don't think the Vic Bam pick and roll has played out the way I wanted it to. I just don't think Vic has looked very poised as a ball handler. Like, he's had his moments. He can still go out and get you 4 assists, even though it doesn't seem, like he's not holding the ball the entire time. He'll get you some assists sometimes. I just think he can be very erratic and has looked less accurate without looking at the numbers right now, has looked less accurate as as a passer this year. It feels like he's bumbling the ball a lot more. Not necessarily just on the turnovers, but with the passes as well. And I think that's been the case with Gabe. Gabe is fine. And I've said this before, he's like that backup quarterback, but he's one of those guys who probably can't take on more in the sense of like, he can't do that much pick and roll creation. So I don't think that's very feasible for him and Bam. I think Gabe is going to look to get to his spots in the mid-range if you run that Gabe Bam pick and roll. We've seen the Jimmy Bam pick and roll time and time again, and a lot of times it doesn't end up in the hands of Bam. It might, end up with a Jimmy shot, a Jimmy free throw, or it might end up in an open three-point shooter taking the shot. But Jimmy is not necessarily good at feeding Bam. And then, like you said, the Tyler Bam pick and roll is their best prospect at feeding him as a roller. But the thing is, teams already have the book is out there on how to guard the Tyler Bam pick and roll. You send a little bit extra help, you put some size on Tyler, and I think you make the pass hard for him because that pocket pass. I think teams know that's what he's looking for, and that's to your point from earlier in the show where Tyler can really get going with the floater and those little in between shots. I think he's gotten really good at that. I think he's polished his game up even more in the pick and roll, in that aspect. And he's spoken about it. I just think it's one of those things where if you had improved guard play, that would make things a lot easier for Bam. And that's why Brady has said this a lot too. I just think they got to get him more, Bam specifically. They got to get him into his spots a little bit easier where it's not give him the ball and make him do it by himself. The same way that they run plays for Jimmy, where they'll run an off-ball screen and try to get him good position down low so that then he can initiate from there without having to do the work first. They should do that same stuff for Bam. And we've seen it here and there. I've talked about a small guy screening for Bam in the past. You can do that off ball. You don't necessarily have to do it with Bam on the ball. And so, get him in good positions. And I think that's really the best way to do it at this point, because I don't think there is any upside for Bam to get easy points as a roller. And that's just kind of the sad state of it, because he is such a damn good roller. But I think they've kind of maxed out in that aspect. So you have to, I think, make things easier for him otherwise as a scorer.
Priority in the offseason, get a guard who can throw him a pass consistently and wants to. Those are the two things that need to happen. Thanks to Alex. Thanks to all of our viewers. Thanks to our sponsors, c-armandstaffing.com, or mobile staffing services. And also, check out, again, Playback. We're going to be on there for the UM game. So go there and check it out and hang out with us, or just reading something. Here's mobile C-Arm and staffing services. I apologize. And also betteredge.com. Get on there. Make your bets against your friends and all that good stuff. I will be talking to Howard Beck on Friday, formerly of Sports Illustrated, Bleacher Report, a bunch of other players. One of my best friends in the business, actually, just a great national NBA writer. So we're going to talk about the Heat and where they stand in the Eastern Conference and whether they can challenge any of these other teams. I think he's actually at the Sacramento game tonight. So we're going to talk to him tomorrow. Howard Beck here on 5 on the Floor. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.